Hi, welcome to the channel. Today I'll be showing you how to roast raw Arabica coffee beans for a perfect espresso. This video is intended to show you how to use a simple roaster, but the principles can be used with many popcorn machines, roasting machines, in an oven, and even by hand. Although the last two are hard to recommend, the process is essentially the same. Alright, let's get to it. I usually use YouTube as a resource to find crazy easy ways to do things. Now for this video, while I know some of you will be looking to roast with normal kitchen equipment or as minimal equipment as you can because you want to do it right this second, I think you need a device that ensures that the beans are always moving so as not to get scorched. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need some beans. The good thing about raw beans is that they're cheap and you can afford to practice and experiment with them. Second, you're going to need a roasting device, anything that has heat plus motion. You're also going to need a sieve, a kitchen scale, some sort of container, and a little bit of patience. This whole process should take you no more than 30 to 50 minutes. So let's get into the process. First, I typically measure the beans I'm going to use so that the device is not overloaded, causing the motor to stop and the beans to burn. For this device, I use 500 grams at a time. Next, load the beans onto the device and set the temperature. For me, I like to turn it to 220 degrees Celsius, let it roast for about 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes I might even turn up the heat later or start off at 240 degrees Celsius. The literature on where the heat has to be is varied, but generally anywhere between 350 and 500 Fahrenheit is where it's supposed to be, so there's a wide band to experiment with. Next, wait for the beans to change in color. I'm going to be going into that in more depth after I show you the main process, so stick around to check that out. Then once the beans have the roast profile that you're looking for, stop the heat and remove the beans quickly as to prevent any over roasting. Place the beans in a sieve or similar metal strainer to help remove the chaff and to cool the beans. I shake the beans vigorously to get the chaff to fly away, and then I just try to cool the beans with the air. Now you can leave the beans to cool down on their own or place them directly in a container. I recommend to let them sit for a little bit before putting them in any container, as they will be very hot. And then finally, once you've given the beans a few hours or possibly even a day or two to let some of the CO2 escape, you can then enjoy a perfect cup of coffee. So let's look at what's actually going on and how to determine the roast level. I really want to help simplify this portion so that you can get to the perfect bean each time and so that you can experiment freely, knowing the basics. When you roast beans, you're basically adding heat. The chemicals inside the bean transform during this process of adding heat, mainly due to the Maillard reaction. It's the same reaction that gives steaks and meats their browning characteristic, and what gives toast its toasted characteristic. In layman's terms, it's the reaction of sugars and amino acids at higher temperatures, or elevated temperatures. We know that in raw coffee beans, the two essential ingredients exist, sugars and amino acids, and hence when we add heat, the Maillard reaction can take place. And that's what creates the coffee beans that we're accustomed to. There's an important point I think is really worth making. When it comes to roasting beans, there is no right and wrong. Only follow your taste buds. So if you like them light, or if you like them dark, that is totally up to you. Even when it comes to espressos, cold brews, and the like, choose what suits your taste buds. Alright, moving on. The one thing that we can agree on in all of the roasting process is that burnt beans will taste bad. In the first stage of roasting, the bean will lose water and become dry. Once the water evaporates, the beans will begin their actual roasting process. You should hear a crack, but it's not always very audible, especially with the beans moving around and such. The color will start to brighten, and any time after this, the coffee is technically roasted. Next, your beans will be in the light roast phase. And this is after the previous step, which is the first crack. So that is what signifies it, the first crack. You can remove your coffees at this point or between about 30 to 180 seconds after the first crack for a lighter roast. After this phase, the beans will get a bit more brown in color compared to the lighter cinnamon brown color of the light roast phase. This is when your roast will be considered a medium roast. It's hard to go wrong with a medium, and in fact, it is my favorite roast because it's neither too potent and dark or too light. Now after this phase, you're going to hear a second crack, and right at the second crack is when you're in dark roast territory. Going much further than this, essentially the coffee taste at this point is going to be mainly related to what's in the bean rather than what was around the bean. I would caution against going much further than this, as your beans will be getting very dry, scorched, and may even become a fire risk. Now there's a flavor wheel based on almost 100 attributes, and while it's helpful, it doesn't make sense for the average drinker to dwell on it at such an early stage. In fact, you may never need to refer to the wheel because it's not going to help you know if you like a coffee or not, only how to brand or describe it. What you really want to do is to achieve a general roast profile that you like. For me, I like to typically stick in the light, medium, or dark roast categories that we're all very familiar with. And once you're comfortable with the one that you like, you can either keep roasting that way to enjoy the cup you prefer, or better still, you can try to experiment with that same coffee bean to see the different results of the roasting process. When you start to figure out what different times and temperatures do to your coffee, you should expand that to another coffee bean. If you've downloaded the sheet provided in the description and recorded what you did with previous beans, the process will be very interesting and will illuminate subtle differences you may be drawn to or repelled from. Thanks for watching, and if you found the video helpful, please leave a like or a comment below.